Two of Tom Brady's favorite former targets, the debate raging around Patriots Nation, Wes Welker versus Danny Amendola. I'm Alex Barth. He is Evan Lazar. This is the Foxborough Report, brought to you by 1 in 100. If you're looking for cheap tickets to Patriots games, Celtics games, and other events, check out 1in100.co. They can get you in the building for the price of a pizza or an ice-cold beer. Again, that's 1in100.co. Evan, I think it was Pat's Pulpit that kicked off this debate.
Yes.
With Danny Amendola on the other side this
Yes.
week, now with Miami against the Patriots. Wes Welker, Danny Amendola. First of all, why this comparison? Shouldn't Julian Edelman be in this equation
I mean, at
somewhere?
least it's closer. So I think that a lot of things that happened here, and I'm not trying to pigeonhole all Patriots fans when I say this, but there's a group of Patriots fans that I think were maybe a little bit young when Wes Welker really was at his height in 07, 08, 09. So they don't really, even in 2011, they don't even really remember just like how dominant of a figure he was. And I think that also the way that we watch football now has really improved. Like with Twitter and a lot of the people on Twitter that understand scheme and understand, like, you know, what was really going on and can explain it to people. I think we're a little bit farther beyond, you know, the days of just newspaper features of like, you know, this is the backstory behind so-and-so. So I think there's a lot more knowledge out there too from when Wes Welker played. Wes Welker was absolutely dominant. He had one of the best 6-year runs of any wide receiver on any team in NFL history. He's a borderline Hall of Famer in my book, and we're putting him in the same category as a guy that never had over 700 receiving yards in a single season that he was here just because he made a few big catches in the playoffs in the Super Bowl. I mean, we can get into it some more, but to me it sounds like a little bit like a take that you have when your team is in the Super Bowl 8 out of 18 years, and so you can kind of pigeon.
We'll talk about the catch. Shouldn't that matter?
Yeah.
Because Wes Welker makes that catch and there's another banner hanging over that.
I mean, it absolutely does matter in some respects, but in other respects, I mean, come on. What more does the guy have to do to get you to not think about one individual play?
Make that play.
Well, I think what it comes down to, Alex, is that
it's a major play.
Right. No, I'm not disagreeing that it's not a major play, but what it comes down to is that any other franchise in the NFL, it doesn't matter because you're in one Super Bowl in 20 years instead of 8, and you don't have the opportunity to win 4 or 5 of them anyways. So we're looking at it from the perspective of, you know, the Patriots were in the Super Bowl and Danny Amendola made the catch that Wes Welker didn't, or vice versa, or whatever the case may be, and it just comes off as a little bit of like a, you know, this is the type of argument that you can have when you've been to 8 of them.
It's a good problem to have, right?
Yeah.
Well, okay, let me ask you this then. Wes Welker, Julian Edelman, because I think Amendola was a separate role. Those, I mean, Edelman replaced Welker. Amendola didn't replace Welker.
Yeah, well, he was supposed to, and Edelman kind of took
Edelman
that.
Came out of nowhere.
Yeah, I think that one's closer because at least with Edelman, you have a few 1,000-yard seasons mixed in there. You have the playoff clutchness combined with some regular season production. The top 5 seasons in receptions in Patriots history, all Wes Welker. 3 out of the 5 receiving yard seasons, Wes Welker. Wes Welker holds the single season yards record and catches record. He's 3rd all-time in Patriots history in receiving yards. He only was here for 6 years. I mean, I don't think that people realize how dominant he really was as a player. Even Julian Edelman's numbers pale in comparison to Wes Welker's. He's never going to catch Wes Welker in some of those stats. So I just think that I understand they're just numbers, and people in Patriot Nation get caught up in the clutch factor and what did you do in the playoffs, and even though Wes Welker had really good playoff numbers too.
That the regular season doesn't matter. The regular season is the extended
preseason. That's a great take to have when you have Tom Brady and Bill Belichick carrying your ass to all these playoff games.
So let me ask you, with Welker, you talk about the short amount of time.
Yeah.
Clearly the ACL injury in Houston in 2010, I believe.
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of ended his career more or less, or at least ended his career in New England. He went on, he had a couple good years in Denver, but I mean, if you take that injury out of the picture, there might not be a Danny Amendola or Julian Edelman. He maybe has another 3, 4, 5 great years with the Patriots.
Yeah, well, and obviously the contract disputes as well. I mean, 2011 was his best year.
Well, some of the contract dispute was his production was declining, and I think that could go back to the injury.
Right. So I think the biggest thing that everybody, Patriots fans, all remember, obviously the catch in 2011 when he dropped the catch in the Super Bowl, and obviously in 2012 too, he dropped the catch in the AFC Championship game, and that was kind of the beginning of the end of Wes Welker's run here at the Patriots. And he asked for a little bit more money, and he ended up taking about $1 million more a year to go to Denver just to kind of stick it to Bill Belichick, and that contract negotiation kind of got ugly. All I'm saying to you is that when you look at it from a production standpoint and what all three players, Amendola, Edelman, and Welker, actually did. What we're measuring is we're measuring clutch factor, which you can't measure that. You know, you just see it or you don't, right? You either make the catch or you don't. Amendola and Edelman have obviously made those catches, but does that make them better football players? Does that make them more productive football players just because they made that one catch?
It does in that moment, and that's a big moment.
It's a big moment, but you're only in that moment if you're on the Patriots.
Right, that's true.
Like, you know, like
and
every
you're only
other...
in that moment. Welker's only in that moment because of all the work he did leading up to it, right? He doesn't catch 100-something balls. They're maybe not in the Super Bowl.
Right.
Well, we talk about, okay, well, Welker should be compared to Edelman, and that should be the argument.
Yeah.
Well, then let's bring it back again. Danny Amendola,
yeah.
Where's the fair comparison for him? When you look at the Patriots run going back to 2001, who's the player that Danny Amendola and his role most resembles?
It's a tough one to answer because he really was the type of guy that showed up in the playoffs more than maybe he even did in the regular season.
Oh, I think without a question.
A lot of that had to do with the fact that he was injured a lot of the time in the regular season, and they were managing him in order to keep him fresh for the playoffs in a lot of those situations. I don't know if there is a great comparison, honestly, because guys like Deion Branch and Troy Brown, those guys put up great numbers. You know, they had individual seasons where they put up, 1,000-yard seasons and caught, 80, 90 passes. Danny Amendola never did that. So we're really just talking about like 4 or 5 catches in the playoffs in the 2014 Super Bowl against Seattle, and obviously in the one against Atlanta, where he came up in a big spot and made a big catch. And those 3 or 4 catches somehow make him better than Wes Welker.
You mentioned Troy Brown having a history of doing that. And I think that's a good comparison. And it's not a perfect comparison, so don't tear me apart.
The production's just not even close.
Don't tear me apart for this too bad. It's not a perfect comparison, but I'm looking at a guy who didn't do much during the regular season, came up, had some huge moments in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Very limited sample size.
I guess punt returners.
I'm going to go a little differently. I'm going with another name. So very limited sample size, but not a lot of play in the regular season. Came through in the playoffs. Didn't have the same career with the Patriots that Amendola did.
Yeah.
But how about J.R. Redmond?
It's not bad.
Didn't do much in 2001, but you get
running
to the
back,
snowball.
But
right, different position, obviously. Didn't have the long career, but didn't do much in 2001. You get to the snowball, you get to the Super Bowl. He was huge in both of those games.
See, what I like about that comparison, Alex, is that's a fair comparison. That's a player that was a very good role player on a Super Bowl winning team compared to a very good role player on a Super Bowl winning team. We're not comparing a borderline Hall of Fame receiver to a role player.
Well, I think Amendola ultimately is a better, if you want to go Madden ratings, Amendola's
he's a better player
than J.R.
Redmond. He's a third or fourth option, whereas Wes Welker was a 1 or maybe a 2 when Randy Moss was around.
Comparing the roles, what Amendola did and what J.R. Redmond did, I think there is some parity there.
Yeah, I agree with that one a whole lot better. I mean, everyone knows my take by now about Amendola versus Welker. It's ridiculous.
I mean, there's really a scale. You have on one end, you have Randy Moss.
Yeah.
And on the other end, no offense, you have Chad Jackson. And it's kind of, where do they, I think Welker, is up there with Randy Moss. Amendola's far from Chad Jackson, but he's probably more towards
Randy
the middle.
Moss is the single most talented receiver to play for the Patriots, besides maybe Gronk, if you want to count him as a receiver in this Patriots run. If we're just talking about wide receivers, the most productive one is Wes Welker, and it's not even close.
Yeah, just bang for the buck, catches per dollar, whatever you want to call it. If you want to weigh in on the debate, if you haven't already, or you just have a hot take, let us know in the comments down below.
Saying Amendola is better than Welker is a hot take.
All right, so leave that in the comments below, or let us know on Twitter at PatriotsCLNS. This has been the Foxborough Report, brought to you by 1-in-100. For tickets to Patriots games, Celtics games, and more, check them out at 1in100.co. From Gillette Stadium, he's Evan Lazar. I'm Alex Barth. Thanks for watching.